Hi, and welcome back to Tinker Gamer Hacker Maker. Today we're going to do another practical review, this time of the Noctua NH-D15 heatsink, or air cooler. Now, why would I select this air cooler? I wanted it. In fact, I didn't need it. And let me get into that for a second, because I want a lot of things. I come from an era where when you had a PC and you built one, the heat sinks that came with it were garbage. I did not know that this era of CPUs now, they come with pretty good heat sinks. So if you do not intend to overclock, and you do not intend to do anything fancy, you don't need an aftermarket heatsink. Now, there's a caveat to that. I'm in a state where it gets very hot, and I do like the house warm. That being said, I expect my machine to run hotter than yours if you're in a place that tends to be a little bit cooler than mine. So, to kind of offset that, I got an aftermarket heatsink. Plus, I dreamed about overclocking, so I wanted something that had great performance. So I spent a little bit of extra money and went with the Noctua, this particular Noctua heatsink. I looked at all the different benchmarks and I did the comparisons. And I looked at AIO, and I looked at this heatsink, and it performs as good as some of the AIO systems. And I didn't want to have to worry about managing water. Mostly because, when I say I come from an era where we didn't have heatsinks like these, when we would water cool a machine, we would get a water pump from a fish tank, some tubing, a copper block that was CNC milled and then had a little acrylic piece put over the top. That was custom for your processor, and you had to piecemeal everything together, and then you had to find a radiator that was small enough to fit in your case, that had enough BTUs to really draw out the heat. Now, that was a lot of work, and then you had to maintain a reservoir and water, and let's just say water and electricity don't always go together, so custom built water-cooled systems is what was the norm. We didn't have AIO back then. And I didn't want to deal with that now. So I really said, okay, let's go with something that's air-cooled and what's going to be giving me the biggest bang. And I went with this one. Now, caveat to this. I learned some very valuable lessons. One, I've always known I needed thermal paste. Right? You need some kind of thermal compound to put between your heatsink and your processor. I did not know that Noctua, it comes in the box, and they have really good thermal compound. When you look at the benchmarks, it's really good. I ended up buying a tube of Cryonaut Grizzly before I even knew that Noctua had good compound. So I've got a really great tube of compound that I'll use for something else. On top of that, this heatsink is massive. So look at this box. Look at it. It's as big as my head, if not bigger. And really, the parts for AMD or Intel are up here, but the rest of this is all heatsink. So I'll show you a picture of what it looks like installed. Now, when I say it's huge, I was worried about it not fitting in the case. And in fact, I kind of paid the price for that. One of my fans on heatsink actually has to be sat a little higher because it needs to give the RAM clearance. As the RAM I have installed in my where the RAM sits on my board, it kind of blocks the lower part of it doesn't allow the clearance for the fan to sit all the way square. Did I lose some performance? Not really. I got pretty good airflow out of it. This is a really good heatsink, but it may have changed my decision in buying it. So if you decide to go with an aftermarket heatsink, I can definitely highly recommend this heatsink, but please make sure it fits inside your computer. And also make sure that you have enough clearance on your motherboard from a RAM perspective. Because sometimes we'll put risers or plastic shields on the main boards now, which I've noticed, and that can block how the fans sit on this particular heatsink. You may need to make a few fan modifications. You may need to make a few adjustments to your case. Maybe your side panel doesn't fit anymore. Definitely measure this out. Very, very important. So, this is my practical approach to this heatsink. I love it. It's great. I run probably a consistent 30 degrees Celsius. When I'm under load, probably around 40. I've tried to get it higher, and I have, but not much. So I'm actually getting extremely awesome performance. And remember, having a really good thermal compound makes all the difference. You don't want any air bubbles in there. If you want to know how to install a heatsink, this is not the video for you, but I'm sure there's plenty of awesome content out there for that. So, with that being said, stay tuned for more awesome content from Tick Your Gamer Hacker Maker. Let me know your thoughts below in the comments. As always, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you next time.